Hi, everyone. My name's Michelle Ragus McBain, and welcome to Fail Forward Live. And I am thrilled to be greeted today with one of my favorite people in the world, Pattie Grimm. Pattie is an amazing inspirational mentor for women and diversity in technology. She is an author, a keynote speaker, a chronic guest of all things to help champion for this cause, and really just somebody who doesn't take no for an answer when it comes to um, adhering to a status quo. So, Pattie, I would love if you could just introduce everybody, tell them a little bit about you and your book, and then we can get
Okay,
started.
so I love Michelle. She's like top on my list of one of my favorite people in the world. So I'm so honored to be here. So thank you, Michelle. It's really a pleasure. And like we were talking about earlier, we could talk for hours about all kinds of amazing things for women and girls. I had an amazing career. I started out in teaching. I got laid off because all new teachers were laid off because a law was passed in California where taxes were cut so much that all teachers got laid off. So I fell into banking, and I ended up going from being a part-time teller to, by the time I was 28, I was the youngest female vice president of a big California bank. So that was my early career.
Wow.
I left that and started my own company and had my own company working on leadership and team effectiveness. And in 1998, I got hired by Microsoft. And I was there for 15 years. I worked in the enterprise team. I worked in the partner team. I worked on the launch of Dynamics 2010. I worked on Windows 7, which almost killed me, which we'll talk about. Almost killed me. And I just had this amazing career. And 15 years, I traveled the world. I lived in Singapore for 3 years and ran the Asia Pacific Singapore region and literally had the opportunities of a lifetime. And so I talk so frequently to women and girls about why they should go into technology, because you can have the career of your life and travel the world and meet amazing people, work with the smartest people in the world and some of the best team, and meet amazing people like Michelle. I mean, we have such a great opportunity. When I left Microsoft, I had this passion and vision, and I wrote a book for women leaders, which Michelle has endorsed. It's called Quiet Women Never Change History. Be strong, stand up, let's go kick some glass. We'll talk about that at the end. But really, I've had this amazing opportunity, and I would have never had these opportunities if I worked in a different industry. I don't think I would have.
I love your story, Pattie, for so many reasons. And, I think it is so telling of the pivots that you've had on this journey. And looking back at your career, one of the most important things and the reasons why I wanted to start this dialogue and conversation was so that people can say, we often talk about the successes that people have, but we don't talk about the journey. We talk about the endpoint or the destination. So as you went through these motions and ebbed and flowed, what advice, looking back, would you give your 21-year-old
You
self?
know what? I would tell my 21-year-old self to relax and enjoy the ride, experience everything, take in every opportunity, keep your eyes wide open, look for things in the world. I mean, I would volunteer for things so that I could be able to get the visibility or move up to the next level. I always made sure I was visible, I was valuable, and I was vocal. So if I decided I was going to go
Mm.
down a track, I wanted to be the most important, most valuable person. So I had to invest in my own training, certifications, things I needed to do to be valuable. And then once I had that value and I knew who I was playing to my strengths, I would then want to be more vocal and be more visible. So be able to stand up for yourself. I tell women to be bold, be brave, be brilliant.
Oh, I love that. I actually say something similar to my daughters who,
Yeah.
are age 7 and 5. They were chuckling outside my door before we started this podcast. And I want them to know that they can do anything they set their
Absolutely.
mind to, that they can dream big and accomplish anything. And we were on a panel
Yeah.
today with CompTIA talking to a young lady who shared her story about how she grew up with three engineering, 3 generations of engineers, and yet didn't consider pursuing a career in technology. It didn't entertain her idea. And so we, Nellie Scott, who
Yep.
we also know and love, and she mentioned something about, tech being sexy, and she made the joke that she wouldn't have joined. She joined the channel because she thought it said
I love
Chanel.
that. That was
And
the funniest thing I've heard in years.
So that's for me. I love that we both share this mutual passion about getting women and diversity and helping them engage. But everybody just sees people at the top, and they see their accomplishments and their leadership and their poise and their authors and their accomplished speakers like yourself. What would somebody not know about you is your biggest failure? And what did it teach you and why?
I love the title of your show because I did something called a Sue Talk. And Sue stands for Super
Mm.
Unstoppable Empowered Women Changing the World. So it's a TED Talk for women. And my TED Talk was called Failing Forward with Vision. So I was at
Ooh.
Microsoft for 15 years. I had 14 amazing years. I had that one year, it was after the Windows 7 launch, which was the most interesting, painful, fun, rewarding, challenging, frustrating experience of my life. I literally went from rock star, being on the executive potential program that only 50 people got invited to every year at Microsoft. I was put on that executive potential program. I was a rock star on
Wow.
the top, climbing up that corporate ladder. And I hit rock bottom so hard, I wasn't sure I would ever recover. I went from
What happened?
loving my job to literally, I talk about in some of my presentations, I talk about, imagine this. It's 5:30 in the morning in Seattle, Washington. It's dark, it's cold, it's another damp, rainy day. And there's a woman on the floor in tears and sweat trying to get the energy to get off the floor of the bathroom to go to work that day to the job she loved. She has been diagnosed with anxiety, depression, anal gland failure. She's gained 35 pounds. She's not making good decisions. She can't even shop, right? I'm a shopaholic like you. I could shop till I
Yeah.
dropped, and I could shop. I do combat shopping at Christmas time. I could Christmas shop my entire family in 4 hours and buy amazing gifts, and not online, in person when we could do that. I would go to a
Right.
store and I couldn't shop. I couldn't make a decision. I was paralyzed. That woman was me. That woman on the floor was me. And I found myself in this puddle of trying to figure out what happened and what went wrong. And it wasn't Microsoft that did this to me. Yes, I was working nights and weekends. I worked every weekend. I lost sense of my family. I lost sense of myself, my values, my vision. I lost sense of God and what I believed in because I was working so hard. And when I stepped back and reflected, what I realized is I did this. I allowed myself to become a puppet. So instead of being true to my strengths, which is the number one principle in my book about the 5 ways to be an empowered woman leader, the number one is play to your strengths. I stopped playing to my
Mm.
strengths because I was trying to play the role everybody wanted me to play. They would say, Patty, go left,
Powerful.
Patty, go right, do this, do that. And I was doing those things to be a good team player, but I was a doormat. I wasn't a team player.
Yeah.
I literally imploded. And I went to my boss one day and I
Wow.
said, I just came back from the doctor. And she told me if I don't take either a medical leave of absence or a sabbatical, I'll be dead in 6 months. So when I say it almost killed
Wow.
me, it almost did. So I took some time off to find
Powerful.
myself again. And that's when I realized the power of creating a personal vision statement that you use to guide your life. That's what pulled me out of that funk and back stronger than ever. It inspired me to write my book and interview 3,200 people on what makes a great
Wow.
woman leader and come up with the 5 principles. And so that's sort of my story that some people don't know, but I came back stronger than ever and I learned from it, right? I asked myself, what happened? Why did it happen? What did I learn from it? And what would I do differently next time to create a different result? And I don't dance to somebody else's tune anymore. I'm not a puppet being pulled
Right.
around, right?
Mm. Yes. So your biggest lesson then out of that was to listen to your own voice, to listen to
Listen to my
yourself.
voice and have a personal, like I can give you a tip. It's also out of the book about how to write a personal vision. And if people email me, I will send them a free PDF guide of how they can write theirs. But you need something, you need an anchor. You need a North Star. You need something that's going to bring you centered when the times gets really tough. And so I call it a personal leadership vision. And here's how you write it. So I want you to imagine, what's your favorite show? Like talk show.
Oh, I have so many. Oh, a talk show? Can I go back in
Okay,
time
so
for
Oprah.
Oprah? She's
So
not on.
when I wrote my book, Oprah was still on. It was been 2017. I think she was still on. Anyway, so at the time, I would imagine I was on the Oprah show. So imagine you're on the Oprah show or now on the Ellen show, and you're surrounded
Mhm.
by your friends and family, your bosses, your peers, everybody you've ever worked for or worked with. And it's 5 years from today, and they're talking about you as a leader. What words do you want them to say about Michelle? What words do you want them to say about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Personally, do you want me to answer? I can think of this. Sure. I would say genuine, passionate, um, dedicated.
Okay,
Really. Those are the big ones that I
okay.
think of, because I wanna be very
Yeah,
genuine in my relationships. That is very
yeah,
important to me, and I'm very passionate about everything I believe in and giving 150%, and in terms of, execution, I'm driven, but to your point, that's a good point, what you said, I had this conversation actually right before this, and so it's resonating with me, but there's a quote that I've heard that says, "The rest of the world lives works to live, but Americans live
yes,
to work." And I think it was such a powerful
yeah,
statement because, and as a New
yeah,
Yorker, you double down on that, right? Because we're
yeah,
driven and we're
yeah,
motivated, and I saw this, and you saw this during the
yeah,
pandemic, where McKinsey reported that a quarter of the women, 1 in 4 women, were leaving careers in technology. And prior to that, there was not only a stagnation of women entering, but a
yeah, yeah,
decline. So, how do you
yeah,
balance that? How do you
yeah.
balance um, work life? Is work life balance a myth?
I would say yes. I think there's work life harmony. You have to figure out what's going to work for you, and what works for you doesn't work for me. I want to go back to the personal vision for a second, and then we'll come back to this in just a second. Because what you said is you want to be seen as genuine. So your personal vision could be I am a genuine, what were the other words? Genuine, compassionate,
Passionate, yes, passionate, genuine,
dedicated.
and
Driven.
driven or
So I'm a
dedicated.
passion,
Yes.
dedicated, driven leader who makes a difference in the world.
Mm.
So mine is to make a difference. So I'm a compassionate, dedicated, strong, confident woman leader who makes a difference in the world. And I want people to then take some time and kind of fine tune those words and add words to it, subtract, and then write a vision statement about 3 to 12 words that says, I am a confident, dedicated, genuine woman leader, or just leader. And then I want you to use that
Mm.
as your guide, as your compass. And that when you find yourself going off course, come back and say, am I living my vision? When I fell that far, I was not living my vision. I was living everyone else's vision. And so that's how we get into
Right.
lack of work life balance is we're doing everything for everybody else. The third principle on my list and my things to do list is put yourself number one on your things to do list, right? Work life balance means something different to everybody. I think you could have a level of harmony, but it will never be completely imbalanced because I remember having kids and my life at that time was insane because all kids all played different sports and my husband was a high school football coach. So we had that to balance with my
Right.
son playing football, my daughter playing soccer and softball, going to dance recitals, all these crazy things in my life. I didn't have balance, but I had harmony and I figured out how to balance my time. So, women, put yourself number one on your things to do list. I was not even on the
I
list when I fell. I wasn't on number one, number 10. I wasn't even on the list because you can't pour from an empty teacup.
I love
You can't
that.
give away
There's
self-esteem and confidence and a good model to your girls if they see you working 24 hours a day.
Right, and you're a poor role model. There's that analogy, if the plane is going down, they say put the oxygen on yourself before you help anyone else. And it's sort of a survival mode, right? If you I saw this quote actually on Facebook the other day, and it says, "You have so much love to give
Oh, I
yourself
love
some."
that.
And very
Yeah.
powerful, right? That we give to our careers and our family and our husbands or wives or spouses or partners,
Whomever.
whomever. And we have all of this that we give and we don't take. And it's almost this preconceived notion of selfishness, right? Which I don't think men have. I don't think men feel like that they are being selfish when they take care of themselves. but I do think women do because we're natural
Yeah.
nurturers, we're natural caretakers, and that's one of the best talents and gifts we have because, you empower a woman, you empower a village, you
Right.
empower a country. And so there's this huge connection by the fact that we help each other. I'm curious. You are such an inspiration to me. Who inspired you? Who are the top 3 people in your life that helped mentor who you are today and
Yeah.
why? What was it qualities that meant
I love
something
this
to you?
question. And I ask this question when I do leadership training. It's the first question I ask people: who influenced you in your life and how do they influence? And many times it's not some fancy smancy leader, right? Many times it's your mom, it's your dad. I would say I got a lot of my stuff from my mom. My mom was the youngest of 9 kids. Actually, they were 12, but the triplets died. She was the only girl with my grandfather who was a coal miner. So I'm a coal miner's granddaughter. And I'm also from West
Wow.
Virginia, so that's a whole nother story. But I,
Oh, won't sing, but I love it.
I'm from coal mine originally. I lived in California most of my life, and now I'm in Texas. But I've lived all over the world. But in essence, I would say I learned from my mom my drive, my dedication, my working hard, doing the things that I love that I do, and I learned compassion and everything else from my dad in terms of being compassionate. That you can do anything you put your mind to. He would always tell me I could do anything a boy could do, and I could probably do it better. And so,
I
when I
love
made
that.
vice president of the bank of one of the youngest women, it's probably the happiest days of his life. When I left the bank and started my own company, he thought I was crazy. Right. Right. Probably like when you left Cisco and went to work for a new company, people said, "What were you
Yeah.
thinking? You're in this beautiful big
Yes.
company and now you're going to go to this wonderful company that Janet loves. That's amazing." But people didn't know that. Or when I first went to work for Microsoft, they go, "Why are you going to work for a technology company? You're not a propeller head." And I
Right.
would say I had the gift of some amazing mentors. I had a mentor when I first went to work for Microsoft. And imagine this, right? So I go to work for Microsoft the first day. It was December 19th, 1998. I meet my boss again. I met him at the interview. I meet my boss. We have lunch. He says, "Oh, by the way, I'm on vacation the next 2 weeks. Here's 10 people to go talk to." That was my new hire
Wow.
orientation. Besides the HR stuff, we had HR papers we had to fill out. So I took this list of 10 names and I would talk to these people and I say, "Well, who else should I talk to?" Well, I came across this woman
Oh,
named
that's a good
Susan Kohler, who really mentored me in so many amazing ways. And one of the funny things that happened is we were wrapping up one of those typical conference meetings on campus at Microsoft, and all the coffee cups were left, and the donuts and the bagels, and the trash was everywhere. And being a woman and a mom, I started to pick up the stuff. And out of the back of the room, I hear this voice: "Put the cups down. Do
I
you see the
love it.
men picking up
It's
those cups?" She goes, "Well, neither do you."
yeah,
And then I had two
that's
amazing British men when I lived in Singapore for Microsoft: Oliver Roll and Christopher Atkins. And they were amazing leaders. They brought me into their one of their offices one day, and I walk into the office with these two vice presidents who wanted to mentor and sponsor me. They put me on the executive potential program. They promoted me to director and senior director. And they looked at me and said, "Are you happy?" Now, your boss says that to you. The thought bubble in my head was, and I said it because I say things sometimes before I think, right? Like you. And I said, "Well, I was happy till
yeah.
you asked me that question."
So, and this actually bodes the question as well for me. So we've both had global roles historically, and I'm just curious from that setting, for anyone who's in a global position, we all know culturally there's
Oh,
unique differences, the way people engage and interact and communicate or don't communicate, if you will. What was your biggest lesson learned working abroad, and how did that shape your
wow,
journey?
great question. And I've not been asked that one before. So great question, Michelle. So I'd always been in
Great.
worldwide roles before that. So I've traveled the world. I've spent more time probably in Latin America, Europe, and Asia than I have in the US because almost all my work was international. When I went to Singapore, it was the most rewarding, enlightening, fun, incredible, amazing experience personally and professionally. And I tell people, if you work for a global company and don't take the advantage at some point in time of either going to work in another division, in another city, or another country, shame on you. because you've missed an incredible
Right.
opportunity. I learned so much because when you fly into a country from somebody from headquarters, they know when your plane leaves, right? So you're not really part of their
Right.
culture, part of their team. And I had a choice. And this is where my vision came to play on decisions as well. I had a choice of going to Europe and running the business excellence team out of Munich, the Central Eastern Europe team living in Munich, Germany, or I had the chance to go run the CPE team in Asia, running all of Asia Pacific. I chose Asia because my vision is to make a difference. In Europe, they had 1,000 people on the corporate staff serving about 25 countries. In Asia, they had 100 people serving 20 countries that were as diverse as India, Australia, Japan, China, Sri Lanka, where we had 5 people, Vietnam, where we had 8 people, Australia, we'd have 1,000. I really learned how to slow down, be respectful of their culture. Like you don't touch certain cultures, you don't touch somebody's head, even though I'm a very touchy feely kind of person like you. I like to
Mhm.
hug. I'm missing hugs like
Sure.
you. I learned to slow down. I learned in working in some countries where there was a translator that sometimes they would nod their head saying, yes, I agree. But you would leave the room and they do the exact opposite when you got back on the plane and went back to Singapore and you left those countries.
Yeah. I've had that experience. Maybe they were the same people.
They probably were, but you really experience and living in a place on an island like Singapore, which is like a little dot of nothing. So it's an island and a country. Our friends asked us when
Right.
we were leaving and moving there, do they speak English? Maybe the favorite question was, do they have flushing toilets? Well, the headquarters in Suntec City,
Very
the
cosmopolitan.
headquarters in Suntec City had regular bathrooms, but they also had the squatting toilets in the women's bathroom. Right? Option.
Options. I
And
like
I
it.
was in Japan. I was in Japan, the first trip to Japan, and I was on the train with all these men. And I needed to go to the bathroom at the train station before we got on the next train to get into the headquarters office. And I walked into the bathroom, and I'm in high heels and pantyhose back then. And I walk into the bathroom, and there's a hole on the floor, and there's no toilet. And I'm sitting there
Oh,
thinking,
yes.
do I take my shoes off? How do I stand? How do I go to the bathroom standing up? And what do I do with my pants? I mean,
Balance. Extreme balance. And so I have the great fortune, as you know, I've traveled to 85
yeah,
countries, much of them
yeah,
personally, but also had global roles historically. And I've learned so much in my journey as well. I remember presenting to different teams in different countries and, having a very engaged discussion in LATAM and then presenting to Asia Pac and wondering, do they even like it was so quiet, but they were just more respectful and listening. And then at the end, they'd fire up with a bunch of comments and great kudos. And so just the way that people engage is so
yeah.
disparate. I love these stories and thank you for sharing that with me. For me, I'm also wondering, your book has been a great asset and resource in my journey, as so many things that I've kind of leaned in on. I love another book called Never Eat Alone, and story of kind of like I grew up, immigrant grandparents and working
Yep.
class family, first in my family to go to college, and kind of rose through the ranks in that sort of grassroots way. And talks about a boy with a similar upbringing who gets taken under his wing, kind of like the rich
Right.
dad, poor dad, if you will, and learning the way the world works. What resources have helped guide you in your journey? Your podcasts, webinars, books? What has helped
I'm
you?
a huge avid research geek and reader. So if I see something on
Mm.
LinkedIn or on Facebook, there's a post about the 1 in 4 women are leaving the workplace and what's the study behind that. I'll see something about Gallup will have a report on it. So these are some easy things you can do, right? So Gallup is amazing. They're not just the polling company at election time. They're a research company on employee engagement, and they produce amazing short articles, easy to read, about where's the trend and where are we going on leadership and management perspective. I think though, until I moved to Asia in 2004, the last novel I read had been The Valley of the Dolls when it was new. That book was probably 25 years ago, because all my reading was
Mm.
books, about leadership, the leadership challenge, head, heart, and gut leadership, anything by John Maxwell or Max Dupree about leadership and jazz. So I'm a huge student and reader of that stuff, of understanding human dynamics. And neuroscience leadership and all that, and studying unconscious bias. So I'm a huge fan of all that. And an easy shortcut is YouTube videos, TED Talks, LinkedIn. Subscribe to some LinkedIn's where these people are posting things about how do we uncover, overcome unconscious bias, or what are the latest leadership trends. I talk about 4 things leaders need to do today, which is reimagine your customer experience, reshape your leadership, re-engage your employees, and reinvent your work processes in order to thrive. And so I write on that, but I read on that. And then I rely on mentors and sponsors. And people
I
like you,
love
I
that.
learned so much from our conversations. And join associations, join CompTIA, Women in CompTIA, Advancing Women in Technology. Become active in these groups.
Yes.
You'll meet amazing people like we did this morning at this networking session. I knew you and Nellie. I think that was it.
Right. And then you have a room of great
Yeah.
discussion and open mindedness. And I remember one of the gentlemen said something that said, they said, well, we need more sponsors, less mentors. And he said, I have a dumb question. What's a sponsor? And I said, there's no dumb questions. And it's really important that we
Yeah.
differentiate, right? A mentor is somebody that can, tell you their story and guide you. A sponsor is somebody that's going to pick up the bat and go to bat for you and
Yeah.
champion you and endorse you and talk about you. I think that I love that you touched upon some of those key elements of what has helped you and the mentors and sponsors that have influenced you in your journey. And, you've had so many different roles from working in corporate America and a top, Fortune 500 company to an independent author and writer. What would be the biggest misconception about either world that you've heard, and that you would want to debunk? Especially being an author. I always hear everybody wants to be an author. Everybody has a book in their
Just
mind.
go
I'm
do it. Just
curious
go
for
write it,
you. What
Michelle. You just take all your journals, all your thoughts, start putting them together on your office wall, and eventually it'll become a book. I use Post-it notes, right? I use Post-it notes, and every time I had a thought, I would put it on a Post-it note, and they're all over my wall here for my new book that I'm writing right now. So take all that energy and put it into something positive. I think the biggest myth is when I went to work with Microsoft in 1998, people said, well, why would you sell a successful company and go to work for a corporation? Aren't you going to feel um, caged in? Aren't you going to feel like a wild animal in a cage and you can't do the things you want to do? That was not my experience,
mm,
right? Yeah, there were certain rules and regulations, and you couldn't fly first class from Dallas to Denver because it's an hour flight. But I could fly first class or business class from here to Singapore when I needed to go to Singapore or something.
which is much
Oh,
more
yeah, yeah.
efficient.
When it's a 24-hour flight, it makes a big difference than a 2-hour flight. So there's certain rules you had to live within. But my experience working in technology is you're making a difference in the world, and there is no limits to what you can do and what you want to do if you have the passion and the courage and the conviction to go do it. And I was once told I was unmanageable, of which I said thank you. I'm sure you'd say the same thing. Right? Eventually
I
you're going to
love
do
it.
what you want
Yes.
anyway. But what I found to be help me be successful is that if I wanted to do something, like when we started the first part of the partner experience journey, we had a lot of leaders, including the country manager in Australia and a lot of different countries, that didn't believe that if the way you treat your employees and customers was going to impact his bottom line. So we had this big meeting. I was talking about it. He didn't buy in. And so I kind of walked away thinking, oh, well, I didn't get the buy-in I needed to start this initiative in Asia. And I walked away sort of feeling a little bit of a failure. And then I asked myself, well, you know what? I was coming at it from my angle. I needed to pivot
Mm,
to his angle. What does he want to accomplish? What are his strategic business initiatives? One word of advice for women is go learn the business. Stop playing it
mm.
safe and
Yeah.
taking roles in HR and marketing and communications and operations, and take those tough roles in finance, not in finance, in sales and marketing, and go out there and carry a bag for a few years. You'll learn amazing things. Stop taking the safe jobs and do something outside of that. And learn the business. So when you want to present something and it's a great idea, that you tie it to their business initiatives. And all of a sudden it becomes their idea.
Absolutely. I think that, and you kind of tongue in cheek, I will say, it's also you establish your goals and you go for them, right?
Absolutely.
We talk a lot about syndrome. And I mentioned to you prior to this, I talked about a podcast for years. And then finally, it took me just saying, Jay was launching his list. And I said, I want to be on that list. What am I waiting
Do
for?
it.
Just do it. Commit, and take action. And this is something I'm so passionate about because this is a talk about mentorship and guidance. And so many people have so much wisdom to share. And I want to bring that to people so that they can listen and learn and we can all grow together because I believe that all boats rise evenly. And I also believe that even though you never feel prepared for a role, once you throw your hat in the ring and do it, you learn. Nobody knows anything
Yeah.
before they do it. The president doesn't know what it's like to be the president before he gets elected. So
Yeah.
we can never assume that we're going to have all of the 100% of qualifications and the perfectionism needed that women put on themselves in order to take a role. I had this great story that somebody shared with me once, and they said they had a role for an events planner, and there was a woman on the team that they thought was perfect for the role that had 9 out of the 10 qualifications. But in her head, she didn't have 10 of the 10. And there was a gentleman on the team who never has run an event, but he's like, I've been to a few events once, so I feel like I could
Oh
do
yeah.
the job, and literally applied for it. And so you and I are very passionate about women and diversity and technology. I'd like to know from you, why are you so passionate about this subject?
I think, to me, it opens unlimited opportunities for women to rise to the top, to have access to the right jobs, to have access to the right opportunities, to have access to the right mentors and sponsors. This field is so wide open for women, and there's so much opportunity if you just, we need people in technology that are marketing people, sales people, communications, HR, finance, any job you could pick in any company if you're passionate about it. A technology company needs you. And if you take that job and
Mm,
you apply yourself and you work with, dedication, and you're visible, valuable, and vocal, and you work hard at it, you will get noticed, but you also have to speak up. Be willing to toot your own horn. Be visible and present in that room. So if you've got a big all hands meeting or a big all hands even Zoom meeting, ask for the agenda ahead of time, figure out what the topics are, and have a thought provoking question to ask so that you're visible and you're there and you're present and people start to notice you. Be willing to go for that job, volunteer for different things, and don't volunteer to be the party planner. Those are invisible jobs. They're thankless,
right.
invisible jobs that you become the party planner, or for some reason, every group I worked in at Microsoft, I end up organizing our day of caring when we gave back to through United Way. We did an entire day of caring. We always did. I always got organizing that. That's invisible work, right? It's going to count for a few things, but it
It
doesn't
from the
matter
heart,
on your.
but
It
not
doesn't help
from
your
the
performance review.
right. That's fair, and I believe that, I'm big into philanthropy and
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And if that's when I say people buy from people they like, it could be, you like the same sports teams, you play golf together, or it could be you share missions and visions. But raise your hand, turn your camera
Turn
on.
your
I see
camera
so many
on.
video conferences, women are just gone. They turn them off, and they're, I don't know what level of perfection. We are all in a pandemic. We know what we look like, dress to impress, or even if you're not, be
Yeah.
visible vocally and visually so that you're not, you have a seat at the table. I would
I would
absolutely
agree.
agree
And
with
then what
that.
I tell people to do is go on your own Zoom before the call or meeting
Mm.
for 2 seconds and look at your lighting. Look at how you only have to. I'm sitting here in my jeans and in my bare feet, right? So how do you look and make sure you're visible and that don't make yourself like this or be so back from
Yeah.
the camera that nobody can see you. Make sure
Right.
confidence shows in your body first. It's head up,
Right.
eyes looking forward, ears over your shoulders, and sitting up straightly and looking into the camera and being able to have that conversation and be able to ask that question. I think that's really important for women is having that confidence and confidence comes from a number of things, but courage isn't the lack of fear. Courage is the learned ability to work through fear and our comfort zones to get to the other side.
Very powerful. Very, very powerful. I love that. And Here's my other question. The other passion that you and I share tremendously is global travel. And it's been a long 15 months for many of us who were kind of restricted. I know I was quarantined being high risk for close to a year. I'm recently vaccinated. I'm prayerful for everyone in
Yeah,
India with
yeah.
everything going on in the world. I want us to come to the brighter side sometime ahead. When it's safe to travel, where are you going to go next? Where is your destination?
I would go back to Singapore and Australia because I've got really good friends in Singapore, Thailand, Australia. I'd go back to Asia and visit my friends. The second place I would go would be go back to Italy. Right. I traveled the
Mm,
world for many years on Microsoft. The one country I'd not been to was Italy for a business trip. So we took a couple of years ago. We took an amazing trip through Italy and absolutely loved the food, people, culture, everything. So Asia kind of piece of it, and then Italy would be high, high, high on my list.
I love Southeast Asia has a tremendous place in my heart. I love Italy. My
Yeah.
family is from there and love Australia as well. It's just such a beautiful, welcoming, unique country. Every aspect of it's so unique. And so I've heard a rumor that you are working on another book. Is it true? And what can you tell us
Okay.
about
Call
it?
me crazy. I don't have enough on my plate, right? Um, I started to write the book, and it was going to be another book for women. The original title was going to be called "When She Rises, He Does Not Fall: How to Create Inclusive
Mm,
Workplaces for All." And I like to interview and do the research. Like I said, I interviewed 3,200 people, and I had a survey for my first book, so I could have data and best practices that I collected. And I started interviewing people, and every time I started to say something, well, what are the challenges that women face and people of color? What are the things that
mm,
organizations need to do to help elevate women and people of color? And this kept coming up as a theme, and I was thinking, I'm thinking too narrowly. So now the book is something, working titles kind of great leaders, rock star teams, fast track business results, how to create inclusive and innovative workplaces for all. And so it's going to have a
mm.
section on inclusion and equity, neuroscience leadership, all the stuff about what organizations and women and men need to do in terms of helping elevate and help people get access, women and people of color. It's all
Mm,
about innovation, all about inclusion. The second part is about innovation because I don't think you can have innovation without inclusion. Once you have inclusion, the biggest benefit of inclusion and diversity is innovation. So it's really kind
right.
of putting those things hand in
Absolutely.
hand and really coming out with I'm interviewing people from Apple, IBM, Microsoft, Cisco. I'm interviewed a woman from a small marketing company that has an amazing set of values and centered around those four things: reimagine your customer's experience, reshape your leadership, re-engage your employees, and reinvent your work processes. And so kind of putting that all together. So I'm hoping to finish it in the next 60 days and then maybe publish it by the end of the year. But we'll see. We'll see.
I love that. I love that so much. I love the idea, and that's such a very powerful topic. And there was something that I'm so delighted, and I hope you can join me June 8th. Channel Futures, Alliance of Channel Women, and the Allies of the Channel Council are teaming up, and we have Michelle Witherspoon of Cisco. We have Madupe Congleton from AWS. We have Gabriella Schuster from
My favorite
Microsoft.
person.
We have Krista from Union College, and we have Yvette Steele from CompTIA, and I will be moderating that panel. But one of the quotes that is so impactful from the flyer that I found and I wanted to share says, diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice be
Yep.
heard. And so just because you're included does not mean that you're
Yep.
heard or that you're listened to. So it's taking that active approach, whether it's and it may not just be gender, it may not just be race, it may be socioeconomic background, it may be introverts versus extroverts, it may be culturally, internationally. There's so much that makes us unique, but there's tangible results that come from having a diverse team: increased profitability, increased benefits, a better culture, a better product, service, and
Right.
solution. So I'm so looking forward to reading your next book
Yeah.
as well. And my final question for you, Patty, if you can go into my shoes and ask yourself something I didn't, what did I miss? What would you
What would
ask
I ask
yourself?
myself? Wow, that's a very interesting question. What would I ask myself? Um, when will I ever retire? My
Do you
my
think
my
you
kid.
will?
I told my kid I was going to when I left Microsoft in 2013. I told him I was retiring. He goes, "Oh, give me a break."
I love that. I love my mother-in-law, she is a retired principal, and her boyfriend, and she says she's too old to have a boyfriend, but I don't think you're ever
No.
too old. So, mom, you're fine. He's an engineer, and they have this wonderful relationship where he only takes projects sometimes, and he works abroad. They go through Australia, they drive around the country for 6 months in a camper van, and he intermittently works when he has Wi-Fi. So you can always
Yep.
keep your
I'll
mind
always be doing
working
something
and
somewhere.
I love that. Patty, for our listeners, if they wanted to find you, connect with you, purchase your book, hear you speak, have you join a webinar or a podcast and share your wisdom, how can they
Okay, so
connect
a
with you?
couple things. I'm a pretty simple person. I've sent it for the show notes. I put all my LinkedIn, Twitter, Face, all that stuff. All that stuff's in the show notes that I sent to Michelle. So hopefully they'll be there. I'm sure they'll be there as well. I'm a really pretty simple person, so people can actually contact me directly through LinkedIn or through just email me, pattygrimm@live.com. It's PATTIE GRIMM at LIVE.com. And as I said, if people email me, I will send you a free PDF guide of what is a leadership vision, how do you write one, how do you use it, etc. So I'll send that to listeners for free. If people want to get my book, I've actually got a special offer for podcast guests, listeners, and for when I'm speaking at conferences or webinars. You can get the book, which is normally $18.95 on Amazon. You can get it for $10. That includes through
That's
$200 in free bonuses. There's 5 videos of me walking through the 5 ways to be an empowered woman leader and several other tools in there. Free shipping and handling in US only. Outside US, there's an extra charge for postage. So $10 gets you the book, $200 in bonuses, and free US shipping and handling. You can either email me at pattygrimm@live.com or you can go to my site, which is www.womenkinkingglass.com/book. So www.womenkinkingglass.com/book. And that will take you right to where you can buy it with your PayPal or credit card, however you want to pay. So that's how they can find me.
awesome. Patty, you are a delight. I enjoy every conversation we have. I thank you for your time, for your wisdom, for sharing your journey with us. And let's remember, all of us, that quiet women never made history. Let's go kick some glass. Have a
Thank you.
great
You
day.
too.
Take care.